Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Beauty Industry Podcast, your online support community for the professional beauty industry, connecting you with education pieces, innovative industry products and inspiration from industry experts. I am your host, founding director of Beauty Industry, Tamara Shaw. Storm Watson caught my eye when I first saw her Instagram page at the Skin Educator. After finding this little gem during my scrolling, I immediately found myself in a YouTube hole watching all of her educational videos. Through those videos, Storm covers educational pieces such as how vitamin A works within the skin, how to overcome stress at work, what microneedling does for your skin, and so many more. What impressed me about Storm and her business, The Skin Educator, was her simple educational language and her easily applied steps to learning and doing. Today, the Skin Educator herself, Storm, shares with us how you can make the most out of your training sessions. I think you're really going to love it. Thank you so much, Storm, for being a part of the podcast today.
Thank you, Tamara, so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
We're just excited as to have you. Storm, let's go all the way back to the start of your career and how you entered into the industry. Where did it all begin for you?
Yeah, so I actually came into the industry so really actually not that long ago. So we're coming up to 5 years now. And like you actually, Tamara, which I listened to your podcast the other day, I started off in the spa industry as well. So that was really nice to hear. Yeah. So I actually started off before I even graduated. So I started off doing reception shifts. And I then from there went into treatments. So I did reception and treatments throughout the year and a half that I was there. So I actually ended up in a management role in the same day spa a year and a half later. So that was amazing opportunity at such a young age as well. I was only 20 at that age. So that was amazing. So from there, I really did that for about a year and a half. And as I was manager, I also studied my cert for in training and assessment. So I did that while I was managing. And it was at that point when I finished that I was like, well, I've done management, I've done treatments. I really want to learn more about the industry because when you work in a day spa, as you know, we don't do every single treatment that's in the beauty industry. So I really wanted to get more experience. So I actually went and worked in a clinic for about 6 months because then I ended up moving to the Sunshine Coast from Brisbane. So I couldn't stay in that job anymore. And at the moment, I'm back in the spa industry, which is lovely. And then I'm working on the Skin Educator at the same time. So working in training and reception and doing treatments as well. So I've got the best of everything.
Fantastic. That's a very similar career to what I've had.
I know. Yeah.
I listen to people who were made in or educated themselves into a management role quite early in the piece. So, mid to early 20s. And I always just think that there must be something special if you can make management at that young age. And, if you look at your career pathway now coming into education and specifically the Skin Educator, there is clearly something that you are passionate and determined about to kind of share your message with the industry.
Yeah, no, I love it so much. So, yeah, you got to share your message if you've got one. So, especially with our industry being so big.
That's exactly right. And what made you so passionate about education?
Yeah, so when I studied my Diploma of Beauty Therapy, I loved it so much. And the team that I was with, the other students, it was a small student, so it was about 12 of us, and we just all connected so well. And I just loved all the teachers, the way they taught, and the whole course was so fun. And at that point, I realized, I would love to do this one day. So I remember I was 6 months into the industry, and I emailed one of my teachers, and I just said, what do I need to do to be a teacher or a trainer and how much experience do I need? Because at that point I was like, this is what I want to do in the end. But yeah, of course, you need a few years experience. So I was like, okay, look, I know what I need to do. So I'll work on that. And then, now I've been in the industry 5 years. I started training last year. So 4 years into the industry, I've really got into training, which is what I love. So yeah.
Fantastic. And you said that you studied your TAE. So for anyone who doesn't know, that's your training and assessment certificate. For me, that was really kind of eye-opening. You learn all about the different personality types. You learn about learning styles and how people take in content, retain content. So that for me, even if I didn't become a trainer, I think that's just one of the most valuable kind of courses that I've done in my career.
Yeah, absolutely. I found it really good as well. And you can actually see the difference. Everyone learns differently as well. It's so important to know. And all our clients, especially, everyone has different personalities. So it's really important to be able to read people.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So you are now found, well, how I found you was on Instagram and also YouTube as the Skin Educator. What was that moment that you decided you wanted to jump on a public platform, spread your education further and make those accounts?
Yeah, so I started with the Skin Educator last April. And I think I've done YouTube before for like years ago doing makeup tutorials. They're all in private, so you won't be able to see them. But I've had a bit of experience in video editing and everything like that years ago. And I've done blogging before as well. And I think I'm so passionate about skin, and it got to the point where I wanted to help more people. So you can only help so many people when you train them, or with your clients as well. You can only see so many people in a day. So I started off just not really knowing who I was talking to, just starting off with normal skin education for clients. And it was at that point, probably November last year, when I realized that a lot of my followers and people on my email list were actually beauty therapists needing help. And I thought, oh, this is who I actually resonate with more, because I actually do train beauty therapists. So then I more decided to help them, because it's so important for us to educate our clients. And you would understand, being in a trainer role as well, how much negativity there is around retailing over the years. And it still is. And I do get it, like, because I've been in that situation when I was like first year graduate. It's scary. And I think what we all need to think about is we're the professionals, and it's so important for us to be educating our clients, and, don't think about it as retailing, but thinking of it as educating your clients and helping them with a concern, because otherwise they're just going to go somewhere else as well. And a lot of clients just do a lot of guesswork. So that's kind of where I am at the moment. And it seems to be, I'm really passionate, and I feel a lot more, like I'm helping a lot more people. So it's just amazing how much it's grown as well in the past few months.
Oh, that's fantastic to hear. And what you're doing by jumping on those social and digital media and platforms is that, yes, you can definitely reach more people, but you're making training a lot more accessible for people.
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
especially, where you are up on the Sunshine Coast, I can imagine there would be a lot of training classes in Brisbane. And so it takes, 2.5 hours to get up to the sunny coast. And then you've got all of these regional Queensland accounts in far north Queensland as well. So it's so nice that people from anywhere, not just Queensland, but anywhere across Australia, or really the world, because you've got YouTube and Instagram, can jump on there and take just bite-sized chunks of education at any time. They don't have to travel via car for 2 or 3 hours to get to you.
No, and I think it's really great. Like, we've got all we're accessible to the internet now, and there's so much growth that we can help our industry really grow their success. And like with what you're doing as well, it just really helps connect everyone together. It's so nice.
Yeah, 100%. So we're talking about a topic today, which I feel is super important, having education background myself, which is how a therapist can make the most out of their trainings that they attend. So one comment I hear by therapists on one hand is, I don't get enough training, or, I wasn't taught how to do that. And then we flip the coin and we go on to the other side of the conversation, by which the business owner says, well, how can I be sure that I'm not wasting my money if I send my staff to these training sessions and then they don't learn anything, or be it I send my staff to the training sessions and then they resign in 6 to 12 months. And
Which
then
does happen, yeah.
Yeah. And then the business owner feels at a loss because there's
Mm.
obviously spent all this money on them and now the person has left. So it is very important from both a personal and a professional level, but it can be tricky for both parties. As an educator, what are some of the light bulb things or moments that you see happen in training sessions?
Yeah, so I personally love attending skincare trainings. So also teaching these because it's such a great way of growing in your career as well. Learning is so important for growth, and I believe the more you learn, the greater impact you'll have with your clients, other team members, and like business in general. Trainings, I feel like it brings a team together as well. They grow their confidence and they're able to use that knowledge as well in their treatments. I do completely understand from a management point of view when, you put all this training into a therapist and then they do resign, or, they stay with you for such a short amount of time. And it's really hard to pick if they're going to do that or not in the interviews. You really don't know, because there are times where you get therapists that say they can do all these things and then they don't, though. Have you ever had that?
Yes,
Yeah,
many times.
I know, and it's really hard because they might do really well in the interview and then they don't do all that stuff they've talked about when they start working for you. Or some people, they might find it's not right for them, which I totally understand. I've been in that situation where you might feel like, this isn't the job for me. But I think from a business point of view, it's really important you need to be investing in your therapist as well. What I have seen a few businesses doing, which I think is a really great idea, is they're just doing the basic trainings with new therapists to start with for the first, month or two, seeing how they're growing and then putting them in more advanced trainings. And then what I've also seen businesses do is they really reward their senior therapists with advanced skin trainings. And I think that's really great because it's making the other senior therapists feeling really valuable as well. And then they actually come back and teach the other therapists, like in mini training sessions and stuff like that as well. So that's another way you could do it if businesses are worried about investing so much money in each therapist. They can just start off with the basics and then go, invest more in their senior therapists.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, the fact, and this is what I hear from business owners all the time is, Tamara, I have educated my staff. I've taught them all the key ingredients for the products, or I've taught them the protocol, but they're still not getting it. That light bulb's not switching on. But you really do see the transition when a therapist attends a class. I don't know if it's because it's coming out of somebody else's mouth, it's not just the business owner who they hear from every day.
Yeah.
But B, they get that interaction with other therapists and they think, oh, wow, okay. And this is what beauty industry is all about. I'm not just in a treatment room doing this by myself and I'm the only one. It's like there are so many other therapists out there who are learning this massive product range at the same time. And when you see that kind of connection happen, their confidence just starts to bloom. And at the start of the class, they're not asking many questions and they're really shy and quiet. And then, you build up that little bit of rapport and trust. And then in the end, you can't get them to stop talking because they just want to ask all of these questions. It's fantastic.
I know. And I think that's the greatest thing as well, seeing how much they change and transition from the beginning of the day to the end of the day. It's really amazing. And it's so nice as an educator as well to see that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
This is a tricky question, but I'd just like to know, in your opinion, how often should a therapist attend a training session to keep their information and their knowledge refreshed?
I know that is a bit of a tricky one because it really does depend on what training sessions are available as well, because there are so many training sessions, like training schools and everything like that available, but not so much online. So a lot of it is in-house training. So what I probably do suggest for therapists, which I did over the years, is investing in yourself, looking at blog posts. Now there's videos and podcasts like yourself doing this education, which is amazing. So they can listen to that stuff every week. I think attending like a in-class training session a few times a year will be really beneficial as well.
Yeah, Absolutely. And as you said, there's so many resources at our fingertips now.
I know.
You can jump online and read a blog, or you can watch a video on Instagram or YouTube, and you don't always have to fork out, $499 to attend a day session. Like,
Yeah.
there's so much free education that's out there that it's really easily accessible for anyone to jump online weekly, monthly, whatever they want.
Absolutely. And I think it's really important from a therapist point of view, if they want to grow, they need to invest in themselves. They can't just always rely on the business owner to invest in them. It's really up to the therapist.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sometimes during training sessions, there is a lot of content taught, however.
I know.
In one of your videos, you said that your brain sometimes can turn to mush because there's just so overwhelmed.
I know.
Is there something therapists can do either during or after the session to stop the mush and help them kind of retain the content?
Yeah, I know. I've been there where I've been sitting there and going, oh, I don't understand. It's so much information. So I think being really organized. So making sure in the morning that you have a really good breakfast as well, because having that nutrients is really important. Drinking enough water and actually arriving to your training session on time. I normally get there half an hour beforehand, because what happens if you're running late, you start to get really stressed. And normally the class does start before you. So generally, if you can get there before, you're a little bit more organized, which means you're a little bit more switched on as well. Making sure you're taking notes. I know that's pretty obvious, but some people don't. They normally do give you workbooks during your training sessions, but I always find it's in the trainers or the company's words. And for me to learn, I need to put things into my own words. So I generally just write notes that the educator's talking about and really highlighting things that I really need to revise over, and that will help prompt me when I go back to revise later on. What else? So I think asking questions is really important as well, because there are times where I look at the students and I go, I don't think they're getting it. And I'm like, are you sure you understand? Is it too overwhelming? Do you want me to go through it again? And most of them are like, oh, no, it's fine. And I'm like, are you sure? Because you look like you don't understand. But I think even in a situation where, a few years ago when you're a therapist or a student in the class, no one else is asking questions. So you don't really want to ask a question because you might think you're like, oh, everyone else gets it. Why don't I get it? But the thing is, most of the time, if you have a question, everyone else is thinking the same thing.
Exactly right.
So I think asking as many questions as possible, like you're paying for the training session, you may as well get as much information out of the educator as possible. I think also from an educator or a trainer's point of view, it's really important for them not to be overwhelming to the students as well. So really checking in with them and seeing that they're understanding things clearly. And breaking things up, because I've been to training sessions where it's so much information and there's theory and then there's practical. And especially if you're going to a training session where it's really advanced and it's completely new to you. It's a lot of information in one day. And you especially when it comes to skin needling, IPL, laser, all those kind of advanced, it's really full on and you need to know what you're doing. So I think it can be a little bit overwhelming in terms of those kind of skincare trainings.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
right.
so, yeah.
And if I can add to that, one, getting a good night's sleep beforehand. I think sometimes as humans, we're just jam-packing so much into our day at the moment. And it's almost as if there isn't enough hours. And so we're going to sleep at midnight and 1 a.m. And you can see the people who have had a really good night's sleep and who are alert and attentive, and the ones who haven't. And then another one that I just want to add to that is just coming on to the point where you talked about breakfast. I attended a training session the other month, and I'm not even joking. I sat next to a therapist and she said, oh, I'm so full from breakfast. And I said, oh, did you have a nice, really yummy brekkie? And she said, yeah, on the way here, I got a quarter pounder from Macca's.
Oh, no.
And I wouldn't eat that on a day basis, but I thought for breakfast, good Lord. And so obviously, I mean, not just McDonald's, but even the snacks that you're having throughout the session, like chocolate and Kit Kats and sugar and all of these lollies and donuts and whatever you're having. Like, you have to think about your cells need to be active and alive. And generally that's what we're talking about when we're doing skin education. And then we're telling the clients all this information about diet and lifestyle and eating habits, and then we're not actually practicing what we preach. So, you know, nuts and snacks and avocados, so much better for you during training sessions to help that brain.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, no, I can't believe about that. I don't even eat Maccas, so that's so funny to hear, though. I think also having little breaks in between the day as well, even if you have to extend the day an extra hour, because you normally just get your morning tea and your lunch, but even just little 10-minute breaks here and there to get some fresh air, I think that would make a difference as well.
Yeah,
it's really up to the trainer and educator and the way they've planned the day, but yeah, just little things.
Yeah, absolutely. And something I love doing when I'm attending a education class is I am a very visual person. So I love to bring different coloured textures and highlighters and pens so that I can mark all across the page. And for me, when I revise that information, I'm like, okay, blue is super important. So now I'll go and I'll look at all the blue stuff, or then yellow is all my skin stuff. So I'll read over that. So sometimes colour coding and drawing little notes for yourself, if you're a visual person, can help too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And the thing is, you've got to revise later on. And so if that's going to help you, and everyone learns differently. So whatever you think will work for you as a therapist, I think will make a massive difference.
Yes, 100%. Now, normally during training, there are two things that happen, and I saw this when I attended a class the other time. The first thing that happens is that the therapists are super engaged, they're learning and they're loving the content. Then they go home and they do read over their notes. So that's one class of therapist. The second class of therapist is that they're engaged, they're learning, they're loving. However, this time they go back into the salon or the spa and they actually don't read over their notes and they don't put the learning into place.
Yeah.
So what is something therapists can do as soon as they leave that training session to help them retain that information?
Yeah, and you know what? Retaining the information is probably the most important, because you can go to a skincare class, like you said, but if you don't implement what you learn, you're not going to remember it. So what I normally suggest with my students is, or when I'm doing a training class, is after a huge day, I just say, just go home and relax. Don't even look at it. I don't want you to, because you've retained so much information today. Have a break and start tomorrow fresh. So going home, having a really nice, good sleep, and then starting fresh the next day. So what I normally do when I've been to training sessions is I break it up. So I focus on one piece of content each week and I revise it. I personally like to write things out because I find that easier to retain than reading over. Some people will be fine just reading over it. For me, I have to write it out, and that's the way I learn retaining the information. Another great way, which is what I do in my treatments, is I use the information I've learned and I educate my clients with that information.
I love that.
Yeah, and actually, the first few times you probably don't really know what you're talking about because you're trying to remember everything, but the clients don't know. But it's actually an amazing way to retain that information because you're talking about it and it helps you remember it.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said, just putting it straight into action, you know, not just waiting until you've got the perfect anti-aging client that you've talked about, the anti-aging class, you know, like tell your parents, tell your brother, your sister, your partner, like go back and even do something like train the team, you know, so that you can just keep on talking about that information. Sometimes when we put it into our own words and we start to regurgitate what we've been taught, that's really when we actually solidify that information.
Yeah, and I like what you said about coming back and training the others. I've used to work in a clinic that did that, and it was such a good idea because you had to, you know, do a whole training session on it again, and it just really helped put it in your own words, see what you were missing. And it just, it's a really great way to remember things, and you really have to implement it in the salon or the spa or the clinic, otherwise you're not going to remember it.
Yes. Now, sometimes when we come back from training sessions,
Yep.
the business owner says, well, it's the therapist's job to have that information and learn it and then love it. And then the therapist says, well, I didn't have any treatments booked in, so of course I'm going to forget the information.
Yeah.
Is it, in your opinion, is it the therapist's jobs to check in with themselves, or is it the business owner's jobs to check in with the therapist?
Look, I think it's for both. I think from a therapist point of view, you need to revise things. And I do understand if you're learning a practical treatment and then you don't do one for a few weeks, you're not going to be confident. And I totally understand that because I've been in that situation. So I think from a business owner or a manager, you know that they're attending this skincare class. So try and book them out with those treatments. If you haven't got any clients coming in for those treatments, I would probably suggest doing a mini training session where you might bring in some models and the therapist can do the training again, go through the treatment, and you can actually watch them to make sure that they've remembered everything. It's actually a great way for you to see their technique, make sure everything's done properly before they go perform a client, if you feel like it's going to be a few weeks before they do that treatment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And as you've said there, so booking out that relevant treatment that they may have been taught about, but then also as well, talking to the clients about the relevant products or information, and then also sharing that with the team. So
absolutely.
I feel like it really, yes, it is the therapist's job to learn the information, love the information, and then practice it. But it's also the business owner's job to keep that therapist motivated and accountable.
Yeah.
So, calling up your top 10 clients, for example, who might spend $5,000 with you a year or whatever it may be, and saying, well, we've just sent Mary off to a class. I'd love to offer you in for a half price facial. She will be, performing these treatments, and then book her out back to back with all of those treatments so that she is saying and doing the same thing over and over again, so that information really does become learnt information.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea as well.
Sometimes, however, the business owners put a lot of pressure on their therapists.
They do, yeah.
And, they expect that by sending them to a 5-hour class, they're going to come back experts in pigmentation or anti-aging or whatever it may be. What are your thoughts on this? So how can somebody perhaps overcome stress, or what are the best ways to practice so that, yes, we do retain a lot of the information, but the business owners aren't putting too much kind of heaviness on the situation?
Yeah, and it does really depend on the management and the business owner as well, because I find when the manager is a beauty therapist themselves, they understand a little bit more. As some business owners, they own the business, but they're actually not qualified beauty therapists. So they do understand from a business point of view, but they can't really resonate as much with the therapists. I think coming back into the salon or the spa or the clinic when you've had your training session is just to start talking about it in your treatments and not stressing over it as well. I think the more stressed you are, the more embarrassed or, not going to be as confident talking about things as well. And I think what happens when, therapists go into doing more advanced skin treatments, if they're stressing over the technique as well, sometimes they can get a bit nervous. So I think just keeping nice and calm, because when you're calm, then your clients are really calm as well. And just remember, you're the professional, so you're in control.
Yeah, absolutely. And even, I do not do well in exams at all. I've probably got one of the lowest enter scores you could possibly get. But, generally in sessions, there are, quizzes or exams or mini tests that you have to do. So, if you deal with stress by way of, taking a few breaths, or if you need to get a little bit of air, or, maybe an essential oil or a song helps you overcome the stress of going to the training session and taking some of that pressure off your shoulders, then they should definitely implement that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything that will work for you, because everyone handles stress differently as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And from a business owner point of view, I think if I could just give a little bit of advice to just be gentle. Obviously we know that, yes, the therapist should retain the information, and yes, you've paid a fee for them to go to the session, but if we sent you to a business course for 5 hours, would you be fluent in business by the time you came back if that was the first time you were ever learning it?
Yeah.
Probably not. Same as if we sent you to a Japanese class. You're not going to take in everything right then and there. So it is your job to motivate and further educate and inspire the team.
Yeah, I think as well, checking in with a therapist and saying, how did you go with the training session? Is there anything you want me to help you with? Do you need a little bit more help from maybe one of the other girls in the team? Or, just really checking in how they're going, or, each week maybe seeing how they're going with their revising, just really helping to inspire and motivate them and really make them feel like, we're here to help.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
And they're not alone. Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly right. They're not alone, and everyone's going through the same thing at the same time.
Yeah.
So if they do want to follow up and revise, they can head to any of your channels and jump on. You've got so much information on there. Can you give us your handles and links and websites and all of the kind of good stuff? So if anyone does want to jump on, they can go and immerse themselves in your amazing education.
Oh, thank you so much, Tamara. Yes, you can come follow me on Instagram and Facebook at the Skin Educator, and I do have YouTube content, but it's just at Storm Watson. But you can see everything on my website, which is theskineducator.com. So I have been uploading new weekly trainings every Sunday night, and I've just started to upload my YouTube videos to IGTV on Instagram to make it a bit easier for you guys, so you don't have to keep traveling from platform to platform, because there's so many out there, and I know you guys are all really busy, so you can even listen to it in the car, or you can, if you get on the train, if you work in the city, you can always listen to it with your headphones on the train. So just making it easier for you guys to access, and I'm just really here to educate and inspire you to be able to educate your clients and be the skin educators you are.
Fantastic. And you sound, as an educator, really approachable. So, sometimes in education sessions you think, oh God, she's a little bit cranky today, I don't want to ask her questions. But you sound nice and approachable for people to ask you questions. So I'm sure people will definitely reach out to you.
Oh yeah, that's so lovely. Thanks, Tamara.
That's okay. We will be sure to link all of your website, Instagram, YouTube, all of the contents in our show notes, and also as our platform expands in sharing this episode across all of our socials as well. So you can click on any of the above and you will be directed over to Storm and her page.
Beautiful. Sounds good. I can't wait to hear from you guys.
Excellent. Alrighty. Thank you so much, Storm, for joining us today and having been featured on the podcast. We really appreciate your time and knowledge.
Oh, thank you so much, Tamara, for having me. I just absolutely loved it.
I just love the way Storm shows her passion for education and makes the feeling of being knowledgeable infectious. It's not always that educators are living the therapist lifestyle while teaching, which brings Storm's experience firsthand when delivering her training sessions. To find out more about Storm and her classes at the Skin Educator, be sure to head to the show notes. Until next time, stay connected.